Today, we are talking about some of the hottest and coldest players in all of the MLB, including the best two closers in all of the game, in Emmanuel Clase and Devin Williams. And then we have one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball in Kyren Paris. What do we do with these names? I've got you covered on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, you might as well hit that little bell below because it's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify, that allows 5-star ratings and reviews. We would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And what's truly most important, you want that little secret weapon, that competitive edge, that thing that's going to put you over the top to help you win your fantasy baseball league. And I've got it here for you. Join Matt and I on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience where you're going to be getting text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in these 30-minute episodes. And guys, it's we're offering this time of year on our waiver wire episodes. We're going to give you a detailed ranking in the order of you should be picking up the players in, a little bit of extra bonus information, giving you more than we can these 30-minute episodes. And also, you're going to be getting those instant call-up notifications with players like Roman Anthony, Andrew Painter, Nick Kurtz, and so many more, potentially being called up sooner than later. You're going to want to get those notifications quicker and right to your phone. Nobody else in the industry is offering that right now. So give Matt and I a chance on the Subtext platform. The link is in the bio if you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, guys, let's get into today's episode. Got a fun, action-packed full episode for you today. And today we're doing a kind of buy or sell, a must-trade kind of episode, capitalizing in the sense it's still early in the season. You have a lot of players that are overperforming. You have a lot of players that are underperforming. And I truly believe this is the best time to make trades, right? So this is what we're focusing on today. And today we are going to start with some, 5 players that I think you should be trading away because you know what? It's not I don't like these players. It's just that the value right now, it's the time to capitalize on it, right? And let's start with one of the most intriguing players in all of baseball. Let's talk about Kyren Paris. And man, has he been on an absolute heater to start the season. Kyren Paris isn't a name that we were super familiar with. I don't think anybody was really talking about Paris too much, as far as having a fantasy impact this year, in the offseason. But boy, oh boy, has Paris taken off. The 23-year-old Kyren Paris, who, of course, plays for Los Angels, if you didn't know, through his first 13 games, he's been stellar. It's been 35 at-bats with 13 runs, a double, a triple, 5 homers, 8 RBIs, 5 steals, 5 walks to 9 strikeouts, and the kid is hitting .400. He plays second base. It's a very tough position to fill. And I honestly don't think you can get a lot for him on his own. But with a guy like Kyren Paris, it's a package kind of deal. Maybe you take one of the 2 pitchers that we're going to talk about later on. You package him with Paris, and you can go out there and get something done. Honestly, even I mentioned it at the top, so I'll tease it again. The 2 best, arguably the 2 best closers on baseball, Clase and Williams, have been really bad. I'm sure there's a deal where you package Kyren Paris into something a little bit else. You can get one of those 2 elite closers. I'm doing that every day of the week. Paris himself doesn't have like a super striking minor league track record. His best season in the minors came back in 2023, where he played 113 games at 415 at-bats, 79 runs, 23 doubles, a triple, 14 homers, 45 RBIs, 44 steals. The play discipline was actually pretty solid with 88 walks to 151 strikeouts, and he hit .255. So with Paris, obviously the batting average is going to come down. Is he a guy that can give you some power and, a good amount of speed? He sure can, but he's not going to be this valuable, honestly, I don't think a month from now. I think, he's going to go through his ebbs and flows. I think the big leagues are going to adjust back to Paris and, just really kind of give him a hard time. So I don't think he's going to be this amazing all-around player that we see at the moment. I'm looking to trade him right now, especially if, you probably drafted a second baseman that, might not be doing great, but you might have the Tarangs or the Jose Altuve, and you might have been able to pick up a Kyren Paris. And, you can move him now. Now you have the potential to make that trade and capitalize of the opportunity where, you're already fine at second base. You can get rid of a guy like this and you're not really going to be hurting too much, especially when I think a month from now, Paris could be hitting, 260, not have showed off too much more pop. The speed's legit. And I'm actually curious. I'm not I did snag Paris in the one league he was still available in one of my fantasy leagues. So I'm not exactly. I want to check the ownership percentage. She's up to 74% owned on Yahoo. So widely owned for Paris. He's up 65% over the last few days. So now's the time. Now's the time to capitalize on it because he's not going to keep it rocking and rolling like this for, I don't think, the rest of the season. So go out, trade Kyren Paris, get what you can for him now while the iron is still hot. Let's move on to a starting pitcher here. A name that if you played any fantasy baseball over the last, honestly, probably 10 years at this point, the name Nathan Eovaldi, right? Eovaldi off to a hot start to the season, but we kind of know who Eovaldi is at this point in his career, and that's what I'm banking on. He's not going to be over this K per 9. He's not going to have a 0.66 whip the rest of the way. Eovaldi himself is very good at suppressing runs. He's shown it throughout his career, especially as he's gotten a little bit older. Matt kind of likes to use the reference that pitchers age like fine wine. Not all. I don't fully agree with the reference, but some of them do tend to learn how to play the chess game of pitching a little bit better as they get older. And even as you look at Eovaldi, you got to go all the way back to 2019 to see the last time he posted an ERA over 3.8. Or 3.87 rather. So he, like I said, he'll give you the decent ERA. He's not a strikeout guy. He's not going to continue this massive, not massive, but he's not going to continue this over K per 9 stretch. The last, once again, 3 out of the last 4 seasons, the whip's been really good. So he'll still give you a serviceable whip, but he just won't be this good. He's not going to be what's it ranked, the 37th best player in all of fantasy baseball according to Yahoo at the moment. His next start is against Seattle at Seattle. I think that could be a pretty strong outing for Eovaldi. But even look at his last outing. After that, complete game shutout against the Reds on April 1st. Eovaldi went out against the Cubs on the 7th. And once again, the Cubs, one of the best teams in all of baseball right now. They're hitting really well. So Eovaldi gave 3 runs in 4 2/3. They only let Eovaldi throw 99. Didn't let him go too long because of that, a complete game shutout he threw in his last one. But only 4 strikeouts. Like I said, that this is more of the Eovaldi you're going to see on a consistent basis because he'll finish with a high 3s ERA, like a 3.6 plus ERA, probably most likely under 4. The whip will be serviceable, but he's not going to give you those strikeouts. So he's more of like a good SP5, right? SP5, SP6, in the shallower leagues. That's where I like Eovaldi. But right now he's performing like an SP1. So we want to take advantage of that. We want to go out there and make those moves. We're going to talk about, a starting pitcher later, and we already mentioned the 2 closers. I'm packaging guys like Eovaldi and Paris to go out and get those guys that I know are going to be consistently good, or at least get it back together and have higher upside than a guy like Eovaldi. Let's sneak this last guy in before we hit it out of here. Let's talk about Nick Pivetta, and I feel like it's basically the exact same situation as Eovaldi. Might be a little bit different because Pivetta did head over to the Padres. Padres do really good stuff with starting pitching. I don't think they solved the Nick Pivetta problem, but I think Pivetta will be. He was somebody that I was mentioning to target towards the end of your drafts. The start of the season for Pivetta has been really good. 1.59 ERA through his first 3 starts. He won 2 of those starts, a 0.82 whip, 17 innings pitched, 18 strikeouts over the 17 innings for Nick Pivetta. I like him. I think he'll be serviceable, but once again, it's just that we know who Pivetta is throughout his whole career. The last 4 years have been eerily similar for Pivetta. It's ranged from a 4.04 ERA to a 4.56 ERA those 4 years. always over that K per nine, that he's a pretty strong source of strikeouts. So, if you do need those strikeouts, you might want to hang on to him a bit. And honestly, actually, the last 2 years, Pavetta's taken a turn for the better with the whip. So I think you could sell him. I think there's the way to sell him here. I do actually, as I take a deeper look into the numbers here and the way Pavetta's performing, I do think he will be better than last year. He might be able to give you the high threes ERA with that decent whip and that K per nine. So Pavetta is somebody I'm not giving up for, pennies on the dollar. I kind of want to see what I can get for him here. All of these guys we're talking about today aren't an individual like sell for an all-star, but it's about packaging, right? You take the Pavetta, you package them with something else, and then you're able to go out there and get the all-star. As I'm looking through Pavetta's pitch mix, he did switch it up this year too, so it is interesting to see that. Throwing the curveball a bit more than he was last year, about 3% more. He's taken a lot off of the sweeper. He's down about 8% on the sweeper, so the pitch mix is coming in a little bit different. He's getting better results. So once again, not pennies on the dollar here for Pavetta. I do like him more than Eovaldi. I do think he will be consistently better than Eovaldi. But once again, don't think he'll be consistently good on the season. We have the track record to prove it. Once the ball starts flying out of the park a little bit, I think the pitchers overall are going to start doing a little bit worse. The hitters are going to start to rebound. And I think Pavetta will be one of those guys who sees his numbers regress as we go forward. But with that being said, guys, we have a couple of bats here, a couple more bats that we're probably looking to move. And then we're going to get into, I literally have 5 all-star players that you need to trade for coming up next. And guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person, and you guys know how useful that can be when dealing with customer service. And if you're personally a trade pro looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering HVAC and electrical supplies with only a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. And once again, you're doing all of that on supplyhouse.com. And before we jump back in here and, finish up these last couple of sell high bats, I just need to mention one more time about, Matt and I's opportunity here for you guys to join the Subtext platform. Once again, through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience where you're going to be getting text messaging alerts right to your phone. Nobody else in the industry is offering that. And with those text messaging alerts, you're going to be getting those instant call-up notifications when players like Roman Anthony, Nick Kurtz, Jack Caglione, Andrew Painter, and so many more get their call-ups. Those notifications are getting to you faster than anywhere else in the fantasy baseball industry. So if you are interested in joining us on Subtext and getting that competitive edge over all your league mates and having that secret weapon every day, join us on the Subtext platform. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and is available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, guys, let's jump back in here. Got a couple more sell high bats for you, and then we're going to move into names that you need to be trading for. And once again, I got 5 all-stars lined up for the second half of this episode. Let's talk about Nick Castellanos first. Off to a good start on the year. Castellanos, though, in general, he's just been declining over the last few years. Really thought we'd see not a resurgence, but I really thought Castellanos would go over to Philly and just thrive. He had a good 2023 where he was an all-star, but, in 2024 kind of took a step in the wrong direction and he played more games. The health hasn't really been an issue for Castellanos, at least the last 2 years. Castellanos last year, 162 games, 606 at-bats, 80 runs. 30 doubles, 23 homers, 86 RBIs, 6 steals, and hit .254. I just feel like Castellanos is getting a little bit older, age 33 season here for Casty. I'm looking to move him. I don't think he's going to be, as good as he's been in the past. I think I don't want to say we're seeing I actually am saying it, so I will say it outright. I think we're starting to see a little bit of the beginning of the end here with Casty. Exit velocity, hard hit rate isn't looking great. He's hitting the sweet spot fairly often, but that's something that, isn't always a very glue-ridden stat, meaning it's not sticky, meaning it's not something that he's going to keep up. The bat speed's down, chasing a lot, whiffing a lot, not walking a lot. The sprint speed is only at 50, the very average sprint speed. So the steals for Casty that he's given us a little bit of in the past, I don't know how much we're going to rely on him for that. So if you're talking about an 80-80 guy with 20 homers and a 260 batting average, he's not really moving the needle too much for me. But right now, Castellanos off to a good start. As I mentioned, 14 games this year for the Philly, 52 at-bats, 7 runs, 5 doubles, 2 homers, 9 RBIs with 4 walks to 9 strikeouts, hitting .308. Just not buying it. Don't really think he's going to be able to keep it up for a full season. Castellanos, being a former 2-time All-Star, is a name that you could sell, I think, fairly easily. Maybe he bounces back and we miss out here, but I'm just not buying on it. If you could get a top 30, 40 outfielder for him, I'm doing it. If you need starting pitching, you can go out there and you can acquire top 40 starting pitcher, I'm probably doing something like that. If you could straight up trade Nick Castellanos for either Emmanuel Clase or Devin Williams, I'm doing that all day long. Don't know if you can pull that off, but if you can, you could add a little something else. I'm doing that as well. Just not so much a believer in Castellanos anymore as he's aging, starting to show those signs of aging. When we just talked about those underlying stats, doesn't really look great for a guy like Castellanos. I'm selling where I can. Let's move on to this last guy. It's a bit of an interesting case here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Victor Scott from those St. Louis Cardinals. I like Victor Scott, but I really think he's more of a specialist than anything else. While he's, still young and the hype is still around his name, I think we have that selling opportunity. So far, Victor Scott already has 5 steals with 7 runs, 7 RBIs, a homer, and he's hitting .265. If you need steals, Victor Scott is your guy. I'm just not banking on him to be much of a huge use in any other specific category. 99 percentile sprint speed. The kid is absolutely one of the fastest guys in the game, but he doesn't really do anything else. Let's look at the other underlying stuff. Batting average 222. Doesn't hit the ball hard. Average exit velocity is bad. He doesn't barrel it up well. Bat speed's atrocious. Doesn't square the ball up well. Whiffs too much. Strikes out too much. Doesn't walk a lot. It's just a bad recipe for, a guy who's performing well to start the season to end up, fairly droppable in a month. I think the batting average can go south. The speed, as long as he's on base, he's going to steal bases. He's not much of a home run guy, so you're not really going to see much pop from him. And I'm once again, excuse my ignorance, but I'm not a Victor Scott owner, so I haven't been paying attention to where they've been hitting him in the lineup. So he's been hitting near the bottom of the lineup too. He did hit leadoff once, but he's been hitting eighth pretty consistently. It's just kind of a spot to die for him in the lineup. So Victor Scott, once again, if you can add him into a trade as if you're in a league where there's 5 outfielders, something like that, that's probably where I'm looking to move Victor Scott to those deeper leagues. But if you need the speed, you want to hang on. But otherwise, I'm moving. If you have speed on your team already determined and divvied out, I'm moving on from Victor Scott. Just not really a very fantasy-friendly profile other than the speed. But guys, before we move on and we get into the second half of this episode where I have 5 All-Stars, including Emmanuel Clase, Devin Williams, and Jose Ramirez, stay locked on with me because those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, let's jump back into it here. I promised you 5 All-Stars. We're doing 5 All-Stars to finish up this show. And honestly, if you stuck around, you're going to do really well here because these names are very, very valuable that you can acquire cheap right now. Let's talk about Emmanuel Clase. Man, is he off to a rough start. I'll admit, I went out there in one of my home leagues. I bought on Clase. I thought I got good value on him, but he has been stinking up the bed real bad so far. Clase so far, 7 innings, 2 wins, a save, 7 strikeouts, a 7.71 ERA with a 2.14 whip. Oh, man, what do we do here? Well, if you ask me, I'm buying, I'm holding. I'm not giving up on a 27-year-old pitcher who is one of the best pitchers in one of the best closers in all of the game. The underlying stuff looks a little bit shaky to start the year. He's not getting the movement he wants on his pitches. The xERA and X batting average look really bad. I mean, the velocity looks good on most of the pitches and everything. So I'm not out here super worried, a little bit down on the fastball and sinker. He's just really getting smacked around, man. He really is. The cutter's not working for him. The cutter is one of his best pitches last year. The slider's not working for him. Again, slider, one of his best pitches. It's just been a really bad time to start the season for Clase. I don't think you just lose your talent at 27 years old. You hardly ever see it. It's early in the year. Clase has already given up more runs than he did all season last year, this year. But I think he'll settle in. I think we see a big second half from Clase. I think the rest of the way, once he figures it out, maybe we see a couple bad more outings. Maybe it's a mechanical thing. Clase, maybe he's even hurt. Because honestly, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 his appearances, he's given up runs in 4 of them so far. Like I said, nothing's been working. There's an issue here. I'm pretty safe to say that it will get figured out. Clase has been one of the best closers in the league for the last 4 or 5 years, so not super worried about him. Absolutely trade for him. Whatever. You could probably get him for, I'd say, 60 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar right now from most Clase owners. Me personally, I'm a Clase owner. Like I said, I'm holding, but I think we should really be going out there and trying to acquire him now. Let's move on to another arguably best closer in the game. Devin Williams goes over to those New York Yankees, and he's looked atrocious so far. 4 innings pitched for Devin Williams so far. 1 save, 7 strikeouts, a 9 ERA with a 2.75 whip. Been tough going so far. Had a couple of really bad outings. The first outing of the season for him where he got the save, didn't look great, gave up a run there. Then back on April 9th, blew another one against Detroit, wound up getting rocked. Yankees still did wind up winning that game, but it was no thanks to Devin Williams. He has just looked really shaky so far. And basically every single thing that I said about Clase applies to Devin Williams. He's been one of the best relievers in the game for a long time. When Hader left Milwaukee, he stepped up. He was closing great. Just kind of the same issue here. The pitches aren't really working the way you would want it to. The fastball, velocity down about a mile per hour. Changeup is, not getting the results it did last year for Devin Williams. So once again, if you can go out there and acquire either Devin Williams or Emmanuel Clase, 2 of the best closers in all of the game, I'm absolutely doing it right now. I literally have, I put Clase on the worry meter at a 1. I put Williams at like a 0.5. I think they're both going to be fine. Let's move on to somebody who's a little bit more interesting, who might be a little bit higher on the worryometer. Matt Olson. Matt Olson's, a tough one. Had a little bit of a down year last year. Dealt with injury. Dealt with the whole team pretty much being hurt at times, so he didn't really have the guys around him. But I think we'll see a very similar Matt Olson season to that 2022 season, right? In 2022, Matt Olson hit 34 homers, 103 RBIs, 86 runs, and hit 240. I pretty much think that's who Matt Olson is. He has these weird outlier years where he hits like 270, 280 with, even a little bit more power. But those are the years where Olson's really locked in. He doesn't look super locked in to start the season. 1 home run so far for Matt Olson, 7 RBIs, 3 runs, 196 batting average. But you know what? The walk to strikeout ratio looks really good. 10 walks to 11 strikeouts. Olson's a powerhouse. He's going to turn it around. He's going to have a huge month where he hits like 300 with like 10 homers. I'm buying in on Olson. I think he can still be a 240, 250 guy with 30 plus homers, 100 RBIs, solid amount of runs, and be one of the best first basemen in fantasy baseball. So I'm buying in where I can. The RBIs are going to be great. And, Olson's been pretty much a pillar of consistency when it comes to health, dating all the way back to, 2018. Sorry, I mentioned the injury history earlier. It wasn't with him. I just meant to say the whole team. He was not himself hurt last year. It was just the whole team around him was hurt last year, which caused the numbers to suffer a little bit. I think when Acuna comes back, Ozzie Albies going to be healthy. Harris stays healthy. Olson's going to be just fine. I'm trading for Matt Olson where I can. I'm not giving away the whole house for him, but if I can get Olson at 80 cents on the dollar, I'm definitely doing a move like that. Let's move on to an even more. We talked about 3 All-Stars. We got a 4th. I promised you 5, and there's one more after this. But Jose Ramirez, man, tough start for the year for somebody who had an MVP year last year. So Jose Ramirez, obviously plays for those Cleveland Guardians still. Tough start to the year for him through the first 13 games. 44 at-bats, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 1 steal, hitting .250. If there was anybody I could put out a negative that I'm worried about, I'd put it on Jose Ramirez. Not worried in the slightest bit. The guy's been one of the best third basemen in all of the MLB, dating back to 2017. Last year, Jose Ramirez, as a 31-year-old, literally had arguably his best season. I don't even think it's arguably. I think it's just his best season overall. Last year, Jose Ramirez played in 158 games. He had 620 at-bats. He had 114 runs, 39 doubles, 2 triples, 39 homers, 118 RBIs, 41 steals, 54 walks to 82 strikeouts for using guys that play in those points leagues, and he hit .279. Not worried about it. Perennial first-round pick, top 5 pick at that in a lot of leagues. Definitely at least a top 10 pick in pretty much every fantasy baseball league. This is a guy you might have to give up a little bit more for, but I'm doing it. I'm going out there and I'm acquiring Jose Ramirez. I'm giving up what I have to give up to get it done. Guy that you might be able to get for 90 cents on the dollar just because of the pedigree of where he was taken. So if you can package like a third and a 5th round pick to get Jose Ramirez, I'm doing it. If you could get one of these hot guys that you picked up off the waiver wire, like maybe a Kyren Paris, entices, the Jose Ramirez owner, you throw in a Kyren Paris with, like a 3rd round pick, of course, because you're going to have to give up something significant to get a Jose Ramirez. I'm doing that all day long. Even if we look at, let's look at the players that have been the best in all of fantasy baseball, just to give you guys a little bit of an example of what you could give up to go out there and acquire a Jose Ramirez. I'm doing, if you could do a Kyle Schwarber, Kyren Paris for Jose Ramirez, done. Who's been super overperforming. If you can add a Tyler Soderstrom to a Jose Ramirez deal, I'm absolutely doing it. If you can go out there, and this one is going to sound a little bit crazy, but if you can go out there and James Wood and a little something else for Jose Ramirez, done. Mike Trout for Jose Ramirez, done. Just all that kind of stuff I'm doing in a heartbeat just because of Jose Ramirez's pedigree, who he is, and I'm a firm believer that he will still be one of the best players in all of fantasy baseball. So go out there and acquire Jose Ramirez where you can. I promised you guys 5, right? I said 5 All-Stars. I got a 5th one for you that I'm going out and I'm trading for, and it's Tyler Glasnow. We were never worried about the performance issue. It was just always about, the Dodgers might do a 6-man rotation. Glasnow isn't a guy who always goes super deep into games. But Glasnow was really good last year. He got to pitch the most innings in his big league career was 134 innings for Glasnow last year through 22 starts. Had a 3.49 ERA. He struck out 168 batters in those 134 innings, and he had an 0.94 whip. Tough start to the year for Glasnow through his first 2 starts, a 6.43 ERA, 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, 8 walks, and a 1.71 whip. But let's look at this real quick. Let's look at fielding independent pitching, which is an ERA indicator. It tells you where the ERA should be rather than where it is. Tyler Glasnow has a 3.56 FIP. So I'm believing in the underlying stuff here for Glasnow. There's nothing that stands out to me that tells me I'm super worried about him. he's walking too many guys. It's early in the season. Pitchers are working on the control, figuring things out. And I think Glasnow is just, maybe working on a couple of things. He had a good spring training. It was 4 starts, 11 innings, 19 strikeouts, a 3.27 ERA with an 0.9 whip. So I don't think it's a performance thing. I think it's just of getting things together. I mean, Glasnow is getting a little bit older. It's so funny. I remember when Glasnow first came up and he was the talk of the town. 31 years old here for Glasnow in 2025. Really still not worried about him. I think he can be one of top 20, 25 pitcher, in all of baseball. So I'm buying. And I think Glasnow might be one of the easier of the all-stars we talked about today to buy. I'm doing it. I'm doing it wherever I can. Once again, even if you look at we did hitting, let's do pitching real quick. Let's look at the best performing starting pitcher so far. And I'll tell you what you need to do here. Chris Bubich, Jesus Luzardo, Lodolo, Rasmussen, Freddie Peralta. All of those guys, I'd go out there and, easily put into a deal for Tyler Glasnow. Kevin Gausman, who had a great game the other day, I'm trading him for Glasnow. All of those names, and even Chris Bassett, I'll give you one more. All of those guys I'm working into a Tyler Glasnow deal just because I know who Tyler Glasnow is. I know the skill set. Not really worried about a guy like him at this point in his career. But guys, with that being said, that is all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Guys, once again, we will have another episode out for you tomorrow. Sorry for a little bit of delay. Matt's been on vacation. I've had some stuff going on over here too, but we will be sure there'll always be 5 episodes a week for you at minimum. So make sure you stay locked on. Guys, until next time. See ya.